Hello, it's Keith here, and this is one of my videos called Baka versus Retro, Idiot versus Retro. In this series, I buy up old computers with little things wrong with them and try to get them working again. The point being that I don't know a lot about electronics, and honestly I don't have a lot of time to learn, unfortunately, but often I can get these working just fine, and that's how I've gained most of my retro collection, buying cheap things that were sold as so-called junk in Japan, and you can usually get them working with really nothing more than cleaning them, in all honesty. So anyway, I bought a few of these last year, but I've not had time to look at them until today, so I can't remember what this is. I'm guessing it's some kind of MSX because I've got a WSX, but the box is bigger than this. But let's flip it over and see what's actually in there and what's wrong with it. Okay, so we've got a label here. It's an MSX HB11. Now, this I think is a 64 kilobytes MSX1. I bought this because they're quite rare. Most MSX1s are only 16 kilobytes. So this was a bit of a curiosity. It's got two cartridge slots, 64K of RAM. So it's kind of like a missing link between the MSX1 and the MSX2, because a lot of the MSX1s only had 16K and one cartridge slot, but this has got two. Now in theory, my Chibi Akuma's game would run on this if we plug a V9K into it, because while my game can't work on the MSX1 video chip, it will work on an MSX1 with a V9K. At least it did on emulators. So that's why I bought this, and let's see what's wrong with it. Okay, it says here that half the keyboard doesn't work. It also says the controller connector maybe doesn't work, I think that's saying. So let's open it up and let's have a look at what the actual machine looks like. I think we're probably going to have to clean the keyboard basically, and maybe the controller connector's dirty, or maybe it does work and they haven't tested it properly. That's kind of the challenge of this, you know, what's the state of it, and you're always gambling a bit on how well they've really tested it, because if I buy them from the hard off, they've often not tested them at all properly. I've bought things that they say don't work and I plug them in, they work first time. So anyway, let's see what this is like then. Okay, so I've just made a good mess of the floor, so here it is. I mean, the only disadvantage of this machine is it's basically the same size as an MSX2, so they're quite big, but I say the advantage on the flip side of that is that it's got most of the functionality of the MSX2, and it would be really good if we just plugged that V9K into it. So rather horrible red here with a HitBit U, which looks like HitBit University. I think it might have been intended as a school model, so that's not entirely a joke of mine there. It's got that middle joystick thing. Let's see the joystick. No, I had another HitBit that had this function, the middle joystick thing, and the joystick would plug into the bottom at the back here, but it was actually missing, so I never had that joystick. But yeah, if you see when I'm pressing this, the buttons are going down. So the idea is you would have a little stick here, and it would act like a mini joystick, kind of like the Enterprise. But I mean, we could just use a pen or something. So what we're going to have to do now, I think, first is we're going to plug it in and see how it functions, and then based on how it functions, we'll turn it on. I mean, that doesn't look like there's any real corrosion there, so we'll spray it with isopropyl alcohol maybe. Maybe if there is a problem with it, it'll come to life. Anyway, yeah, it looks okay. Let's go to the video of the screen then. Okay, so let's switch this thing on and see if it explodes. Okay, so we've got a screen there. The screen looks reasonably clear. I can't quite see it too clearly from my angle, but I don't think there's any video problems worth mentioning. That looks pretty clear for an old machine. So according to the sheet, half the keyboard didn't work, so let's see what happens. Okay, well that all worked. Okay. Shift keys looks like it's been forced down, but it does work there. I'm not seeing what's broken. Yeah, okay. Let's reread this sheet then. Okay, so I've actually misread this. It doesn't say it doesn't work, it says it does work, but it's bent in. So yes, I can see some of the keys are pressed in here, but it does all work just fine. So okay, well let's turn it off, the screen off. Let's flip it over, take the screws off, and see what's going on inside then. Okay, so we're going to unscrew this and then see what it looks like inside. So I've got a screw here. Put those screws in my Chibi Akuma's cup here. I did actually find there is a hole for the joystick. It's actually at the back. I don't know if you saw it earlier, but it's missing anyway. So once again, I am sans joystick. Okay. Really no more screws than that? Oh, there's some screws at the back. Okay. I thought usually there were more screws than that on the Sony equipment, but usually they're all in the bottom. At least they're not using funny screw heads like a Nintendo do, of course. That's very annoying, that is. No arrow on that one, but I think it needs to come out. This one here, it's not marked with an arrow, but maybe it doesn't need to. I don't know. No, it doesn't. Okay. So as often is the case with these Sony machines, there's cables. Ooh. Power switch. Now it's not plugged into the mains, but of course we do have a big mains adapter here, so we do have to be careful of the voltage. Just have to be careful not to knock our camera there. So, Okay, so that's the keyboard there. As I say, the keyboard is indeed bent, but it does work. So, cosmetically not so great, but you know, in technical terms, no problem. That's weird. Usually there wouldn't be that kind of mechanism there. Anything usually would be all attached to the top. So I've not really seen a machine like this before. This sort of very high-end MSX1. I mean, the layout looks relatively advanced. And we've got some extra slots here that aren't in use. That's quite curious. And built-in power supply, which is also rare for the MSX1s, but. Anyway, it all looks clean. I mean, part of the reason for opening it up here was just to check there's no batteries built straight onto the motherboard, because if there is, they're likely to have or to very soon explode. Anyway, it looks all very clean, and I can't see anything to be worried about. So let's get it out of the way and let's have a look at the keyboard. Of course, the keyboard is the problem. So what I think we'll do is we'll take all these teeny tiny little screws out. We'll have a look what's going on underneath. See if there's. I mean, the board doesn't look bent, so I don't know why some of the buttons are bent in. I don't know, maybe some kid's been stamping on it. Who knows? I mean, this is obviously a high-end MSX one, I guess. I mean, the keyboard build is very good. It's not. Well, I don't know what's going to be under here. I don't think it's going to be just a membrane or anything, though. I mean, and generally, you know, as I say, the 64K of memory and the dual slots and the internal power supply. That's, you know, a real step above the normal MSXs. I don't know quite why. I don't know if they were trying to take advantage of parents trying to get their kids ahead at school or something. I'm not really sure. I don't like the red colour scheme though. Okay. Well, I wasn't sure quite what to expect, so I can't really say I'm surprised, but well. Yeah. So what we've got is we've got a PCB here, and then we've got all of these buttons here. I've never seen one quite like this before. I mean, it's perfectly nice. So everything looks in good condition though, so I wonder why the keys are looking indented. Okay, I mean, just looking at that one, it goes up and down just fine, but it feels very loose. So I don't know what's acting as a spring in there, but I guess it's no longer springy. I mean, I don't know if you can see here, but it looks like there's like a little rubber band or something. No, anyway, I mean, it looks very good condition, you know, apart from the fact that some of the keys don't bounce back up. I mean, this looks fairly decent as well, but being as we've got it open, let's give it a clean. So this is a kitchen wipe that's and they're sold as sort of antibacterial, but it's basically isopropyl alcohol on a tissue. So they're very cheap and they're easy to buy. So I use these quite a lot for sort of quick cleaning. I didn't have before, but I do now have 100% isopropyl alcohol. But I wouldn't use that unless things were getting desperate at this stage. I'm also known to use nail varnish remover in an emergency, but you've got to be very careful with whatever cleaning products you're using. I mean, a nail varnish remover or anything like that will potentially remove even PCBs, and isopropyl alcohol will remove the printed circuit board from membrane keyboards, but it should be fine for this. But I mean, that's all okay. The only problem this is having is the lack of recoil on some of these keys. Can't immediately see what we could do about it though. But anyway, I think I'm just going to put this back together then. I can't see anything really I could do to repair it, and being as it does work, it just looks a bit silly. I'm not inclined to worry about it. So I'm going to give this a while to dry out, and then we'll put it back together, and we'll test the joystick next and see if there is any problem with the joystick or not. Okay, so I've put it all back together. Let's see if I've managed to break it or not. Okay, so it's coming on here. Oh, I didn't hear any sound last time. That's quite impressive. It's about the most animation I've seen out of an MSX, an MSX one, that is. Well, yeah, I mean, the keyboard all works just fine. It just looks a bit ugly, really. So that's all very good. Okay, so it did seem to imply there was something wrong with the joystick port. So I'm going to try my Pac-Man game here, and we're going to see what we make of it. Okay, no signs of life there. Try port 2. Now, Okay, it's not starting at all in that port. Okay, let's try a different game. I know some of these games don't work on MSX ones with odd configurations. I did have a look at the ports, and they all sit so it does work. Okay, I don't seem to be able to move, I only seem to be able to jump. I assume that's a fault. There's no signs of life out of that port at all. Okay. Let's try one more cartridge in port 1 and see what happens. That works okay. I wasn't aware Pac-Man had any problems with MSX2s or anything like that. Maybe it's just the cartridge is dirty. Let's clean the cartridge. Okay, so we've got some isopropyl alcohol here in a cocktail glass. I'm using this kitchen kind of cheap brand. It works pretty well usually though. So let's just try giving the cartridge a nice generous clean here. The cartridges do tend to gradually corrode up even if I keep them in boxes and keep lots of dehumidifying packs in there and things, so maybe it's just dirty. There we go, so it was just that the cartridge is dirty. With that port. Can't move with that port either. Okay, so let's take that out. Take that out. And let's try to clean these then. Tough to get. I really had to clean a port like this before, so we'll just in between them here, but it looks really clean. I mean, compared to the rust and corrosion I've seen on stuff before, it's not that bad. I'm surprised they're not working. Of course, it's always possible that the one of the chips that the actual data goes to is faulty, or someone's tried to plug a different kind of joystick in and blown the port. There's a 5-volt power line in these ports, so you can't use things like Amstrad joysticks on them because the second fire button can actually link to the power port and end up burning out the joypad or something. So I'm using this this proper MSX joypad. Nothing from that port. Nothing from that port either. Okay. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but this is really, really wobbly. I mean, like, incredibly so. So, yeah, and so is that one. I mean, it's rocking up and down. I mean, it doesn't... It looks like probably all the solder joints are broken on the other side of the motherboard. So what we'll do is we'll take this PCB out and have a look at the other side, and maybe we need to do some resoldering. Okay, so I've got the motherboard out, and just looking at it, I can see that is not connected to the motherboard anymore, and a lot of the pins, if not all of them, aren't connected there either. So my conclusion over all of this is that we've had some petulant kid basically, you know, forcing the keyboard and forcing the joypads. So what we're going to do is we're going to desolder it with this and this. Now, rather embarrassingly, I do have like a highly expensive Gootwick automatic solder sucker, but I've not learned how to use it yet, so we're not going to use that. But anyway, we should be able to suck up all the old solder. We'll lay down some new solder with my nice soldering iron here, and then we'll put it all back together and see if we've made things better or worse. Well, if we've made them worse, we've done very badly, because as I say, everything else works and this doesn't work at all. So hopefully that won't happen. Okay, so I've removed all the solder from the back pins, but unfortunately, I mean, even the front ones are moving there, but I mean, this one's not so bad, but unfortunately the actual the pads on this printed circuit board are actually gone, so there's nothing left for me to solder to. Now, I said before about using nail varnish remover can actually remove the solder mask, so I'm going to try using the nail varnish remover to remove the solder mask to see if we can actually get any bare metal. I don't have any proper... I've seen there's some kind of solvent you can get for actually properly removing solder masks, but I don't have any, so we're going to improvise with nail varnish remover. Well, there's all kinds of horrible gunge coming off, so it's helping clean the printed circuit board, but I'm not seeing any green come off. I'm not getting any closer to any metal on the printed circuit board, so unfortunately this isn't going to be a solution for me today. What I think I'll try now is I'm going to use a knife, and I'll try scraping at the printed circuit board instead. So I'm going to use this knife here, and we'll scratch at the printed circuit board and see if we can get to some metal that we can solder onto. Okay, so what I've done is I've removed all of the solder mask by just scraping at it with this, and used the nail varnish remover to remove any debris and dirt. I've also used a glue gun to glue the sockets back onto the PCB. These clips didn't seem to be doing a very good job, and of course the solder is going to be very weak if I do successfully manage to solder to what I've just scraped off. So I wanted to make sure it didn't immediately break again, so that's why I've used the glue gun there. I'm now going to try and solder to what I've scraped off on the solder mask. Of course, if that fails, my next plan would have to be to trace where these pins go to on other parts of the circuit board and then run wires to those positions. But I can see metal, so hopefully we will be lucky and I won't need to go to that extent. So let's try soldering to what I've scraped off and see how we do. Okay, so I've resoldered the connectors then, and I've put more glue onto the other side as well, just to try and strengthen them up as much as possible. So now I'm going to put it all back together and we'll see if it actually works or not. Slide this in here and then drop this down here, and then if we plug this in here, that should be everything. So let's switch over to the other camera then and see how the result is. Okay, so we're going to use Tina Adventure Island here. We'll see how things go. Okay, I've plugged the joystick into the first port. I can move up and down. I can start the game there. I seem to be able to move in all directions here, so that looks like this joypad port works. So let's just try the other port. Okay, so it seems to work okay now. So I'm going to put the machine back together again, and then I'm going to try something else. Okay, so let me explain what I've got plugged in here. I've got the Mega Flash ROM with Chibi Akumas running on it. This is a basic Mega Flash ROM with no extra memory. I've also got my V9K adapter plugged in as well. And what I'm hoping is, will the game run on this machine now? Can't even remember how to start my own game here. You'll have to excuse the delay there. I haven't been cheating and reprogramming anything. I couldn't find the right cables to plug the audio in. So it looks like maybe it works. Unfortunately, being in Japan, I have this like tiny little apartment, and so anything that's not in use at the time kind of gets put away, and so the cables and power plugs were all in the wrong places to get it working. So if I just plug this into port 1 here. So here we go, here is Chibi Akumas running on an MSX1. Of course you do need the 64K of memory and the V9K, but you know, quite remarkable really. I had tested it before on an emulator, but I'll be honest, I did no coding to make it work, it just worked the first time, so you know, quite pleasantly surprised. But anyway, there we go. So the end result of all of this is I do have a working MSX1 here. The keyboard's still a bit bent, but I think all the keys work. Both the joypads now seem to work, and you know, both the cartridge ports obviously work because I'm able to play my game on it. So you know, this was purchased for potentially testing future games because it's basically the highest end MSX1 you can buy. That's why I bought it. It's a bit ugly. I can't remember how much it cost me. It was under Ichiman yen, which is about sort of $100, but I can't really remember how much exactly. Anyway, that's enough for today. It all works. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Take care now. Goodbye.